Hello, everyone. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we're going to go over the weekly security news live with my good friend and coworker, Killian. Killian, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me again. I was worried. I was looking for some comments as we were coming in. Good thing we have James here saying hello.
I know. So I am, again, for everybody who doesn't know the situation, the producer of the live stream now. Zero experience and excited to get into the job. So I believe the title of the stream is actually saying that it's a Q&A stream, but that was Wednesday. We're actually doing the news stream this week. So just wanted to make that clear. And you can expect other fun surprises as I slowly learn how to figure out this streaming setup. But it is good to see everyone. I think I've linked it properly. I'm not even sure if we're going live to LinkedIn today because we've had some issues with that. But we've got so much stuff to cover today. We might not even get through all of it. Yes, good to see James, JR, John D. I thought it was John Deere for a second, and Shaw. Good to see all of you. And if you have any questions about this, we'll try to answer anything you have in the news as best we can. But if you don't get your question answered, make sure to leave it as a comment, and I will make sure to answer your question on our live Q&A stream on Wednesday. So, man, there's so many things to go over this week, and one of them is a little piece of news just for me, and that is Killian, were you at the Varonis like booth when I did that Wi-Fi hacking game?
Yeah, that was a couple years ago, but yeah, I was there. That was a fun one. I remember that.
Yeah, so the device that I conjured up for this was basically like I wanted to make a fun game involving Wi-Fi hacking at the RSA conference. But guess what you're not allowed to do at the RSA conference? Deauthentication attacks. They would hate that. It would not look good. So what I wanted was to teach people about password cracking and actually have handshakes going out there. So what's the easiest way that you can generate a handshake? Well, if you just link two Wi-Fi capable devices together, like these little microcontrollers, one of them makes an access point, the second one joins it over and over, and boom, you have handshakes being generated with no deauthentication at all. And in fact, this is something people can kind of use as like a little CTF if they want to like, teach people about these sorts of attacks, but not actually do something that could get you in trouble with anybody who's monitoring the network around there. And my last thing I wanted to do is teach people, how to like fire the Wi-Fi gun and then have them shooting at other people's booths the whole time, and essentially like knocking their demos offline and stuff like that. Oh yes, don't worry. We're going to talk about the Linus Tech Tip hack channel. We'll get there. But if you want to make a really fun kind of Wi-Fi hacking CTF, all you need is like a Raspberry Pi or something else that can capture the handshake and then two D1 mini boards. So I updated it this week. Before, we had this perf board nightmare that you had to construct of these two things that were kind of like wired all janky together. Now, with the new version of the D1 minis, these are super, super cheap, like $3 or $4 Wi-Fi boards. You grab two of them, you link them together via this little quick like I2C cable, and boom, you're ready to go. So if you're interested, I updated the code. You can just take these. These are the D1 Mini, the newest version that had this little I2C port. You can just plug these two together and you're off to the races teaching people about how to capture Wi-Fi handshake. So kind of a fun little update. I might be doing it again this year if you want to come to RSA and learn a little bit about Wi-Fi hacking and potentially win a prize. Although I'm also exploring some other cool games that we can play there. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. Also, I talked a little bit on our Wednesday stream about all the stuff I was doing with AI. So the leaked Facebook, Meta AI model started spreading all over the internet. And Stanford, I believe it was Stanford, went ahead and trained it into a model called Alpaca. And then our good friend Cocktail Peanut went and made this project called Dole, and made it so easy that you only need about 2 commands in order to get set up using this leaked model. So that's amazing, right? And on the stream, I actually went and showed how you could use this AI model to generate queries and get responses back, and kind of the way that it works. And we actually got it to translate some stuff. And it was pretty cool, actually having a chat GPT-like model running on our own computer. But guess what happened? So this is a leak, right? Meta AI didn't like that very much. And in fact, so many researchers started getting in on this and making it do weird things that like the heat started coming from Meta AI and they started issuing DMCA takedowns. They started issuing a lot of them. So anybody that was hosting this AI model was suddenly like a target, and all this fun sharing and innovation, this kind of grassroots innovation happening from this leaked AI model, which frankly is extremely punk if you ask me, started getting shut down. So I was in the Discord server while this was happening, and what happened was that they froze all development on the project. They're like, we are going to fix this. Like, this big company is trying to censor researchers from being able to like play with this thing that's been leaked. The cat is out of the bag.
Right.
Like, what is a way that this could actually get around that? Are you serious? Bitcoin? Like, I saw people in the chat talking about Bitcoin. And I was like, you guys are dumb. Like, this is goofy. Like, how is this actually going to work? But it is not dumb. This is actually incredible. And I want to explain how this works. So Meta started getting, let's see. So this uses something called ordinals. And this is something I'd never heard before, mostly because I don't care about NFTs and I don't care about Bitcoin. But what happens is Bitcoin can apparently be divided into like a very, very small subunit, a Satoshi or whatever. And you can actually inscribe this with arbitrary information and put it in the blockchain. Now, usually this was used for stuff that I don't care about, like making rare NFTs or like making value, saying that a certain one of these little individual tiny units is more valuable than the rest. Again, do not care. However, what if you had a bunch of magnet links for a torrent and you stored the hashes in this data that is now distributed everywhere and incredibly hard to take down? How do you send a DCMA or DMCA takedown request to a Bitcoin transaction?
Right. That's smart,
tricky, right?
That's
I have
smart.
never seen a better application for Bitcoin. I'm serious. Like, I think it is so interesting and so cool. I'm not sure if I have like some more information. Oh, we're going to Midjourney next. But if you want to check out how this works, I'm frankly blown away by how the developers managed to find a useful application for Bitcoin as an censorship-resistant way to share leaked AI models from like one of the biggest corporations on earth. How do you get away with like freely sharing and developing on top of something that one of the biggest corporations on earth wants to squash? Well, it takes some innovation. So I'm not, again, like super into cryptocurrency, but I was really interested in how some of these people who are on the bleeding edge of sharing AI and making sure it's available to everybody who wants to work with it are actually able to do this. And it's worth noting, and I think there's a story about this later, that Stanford actually withdrew their Alpaca AI. And now this is one of the only ways that you can access it because it's being taken down everywhere. So this sort of like anti-censorship movement has suddenly become the only way you can access this thing after only a couple weeks of it being released or leaked in this case. So if you're looking for interesting ways that people are hiding information or making it almost impossible to take down, this is a really interesting innovation, and I'm super curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This is exactly right. This is sort of the dream or the hopefully the theory of the dream around like blockchain. Like this is the legitimate reason for it. Like this, permanent record, distributed record for checking things. I mean, I don't know. I'm not into the Bitcoin world or cryptocurrency or anything like that personally, but this is the real meat, I guess, as opposed to the distraction of the currency, if you will.
Yeah, there's some really incredible stuff happening out there. So if you're curious to see how the AI wars are playing out, it seems as though like the punks versus the corporations have now pulled Bitcoin into the fight. Something I really didn't see coming. All right, so let's talk about the news that came out this week. Did you see this headline?
I did, yes. I did see this the other day. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago or something. I saw it. Wasn't it? So I seen these pictures. Was it also a video as well too, like a deepfake video?
I didn't see the video, but I imagine with the hands being more or less figured out on Midjourney, like it would be relatively easy to start to stitch these together and create something that looked probably pretty grainy still, or not super high quality. But the frightening thing here is like these look really good. Like they figured out the hand thing, and we did a little experiment where on the last stream we actually downloaded Stable Diffusion, and we're running it on Google Colab. So it was like running on Google servers and stuff. And we tried to get it to generate hands, and it was horrible. According to it, humans have like 4 fingers, and if they do have 5 fingers, none of them are thumbs. So that used to be the way you could pretty reliably spot like a fake image, but this new like Midjourney 5 is able to do a really good job of creating images that could potentially be used to spread misinformation. Now, the funny thing is the person who got all this attention and made these on Midjourney got his account banned like immediately. Because even though, he's kind of demonstrating a point, this was front page news on the AP yesterday. Like I opened it up, I was like, oh, it's that funny picture I saw on Twitter the other day. So I'm on like Midjourney. Like I've used it to create some interesting things, and frankly, it's really cool. It's really amazing. But if you haven't played around with some of these tools, you really need to see how easy it is to generate some of these fake images, or like in the previous example, download an AI model like ChatGPT. I mean, obviously it's not quite as good, but it can be used for relatively simple things. And I was able to get it to come up with a lot of of really interesting images based on the prompts that we talked about. One of our viewers asked us to make a picture of her dad, and we generated a picture of a man riding a pig through downtown New York City. And it was pretty cool. He didn't have a face though, so there's definitely some things that could be fixed with it. But really, like, the ability to, as an individual, pay nothing to create fake imagery like this is exploding. And this used to be something that was very expensive, or only a couple of people had. That is no longer the case. And that's kind of why I'm so excited about it. Even though obviously this is alarming and could be used for all sorts of nefarious things.
Yeah, it's actually funny we're talking about AI so much this week. Just the other day, or 2 or 3 days ago, I was working with some of our research team on some cool stuff that, if you're going to be at RSA, keep an eye out for some of our presentations. But we needed sample data, and we were able to use ChatGPT and give it some parameters and say, like, listen, we need some sample data for some of the things we're working on. And it spit it out like so fast. Like, I've built a collection of sample data for certain labs and stuff that we've used over the years. And it's time consuming, and within minutes, like couple prompts, it created tables for us for some databases and all sorts of other great stuff. So it's kind of cool. I'm coming around to it. I was a little bit skeptical at first, but
we talked about how, like, threat actors haven't really used things like ChatGPT or whatever, because it's connected to OpenAI, who's a huge corporation that's scanning stuff and making sure that if you're using it for like threat campaigns or whatever, like, they're probably going to catch you and stop you, because there's no assumption of privacy. But these leaked AI models, they're not reporting back to anyone, and you can train them however you want. You can take off the safeguards and you can really do some weird stuff with it. It might not perform as well, but with enough coaching and enough training, you could learn how to use these in a very malicious way, and there's no safeguards on them whatsoever. So that's really what I think is also interesting here, is like ChatGPT has some limits on it, but as this sort of stuff gets out, there's not going to be limits on some of these leaked models that people can train themselves.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's okay. So it's time for me to complain about Signal. I got a lot of feedback on this. I had 7 quote tweets, 34 retweets, and like 236 people liked it. What I mostly learned about that from this thread is that Europeans don't use SMS, and they think they are so much better for it, which is true. Frankly, SMS sucks. It's been around since 1998, but like, in the United States, you might not believe this, if I have an Android phone and I want to text an iPhone, there is no protocol that those two speak together except SMS. It is wild. So for Android users in the United States, Signal was able to communicate with anybody. You were able to text anybody. And for anybody that I was getting to sign up on Signal, it was pretty easy. They would just download Signal and they'd be able to use it to communicate with everybody. That is no longer the case. Now people need to silo it between 2 separate apps, which is really annoying. And frankly, a lot of the people that used to use Signal are just not going to use it anymore. They're gonna go back to SMS because they don't care that much about privacy. And as soon as it becomes a burden for them to, think about like, oh, who do I know on Signal versus, oh, who do I know that doesn't use Signal, and split your communication between those 2 groups of people, like, people that aren't security practitioners really don't want to do that. Like, you're barely able to convince them to use it in the first place. And it is an improvement. But when Signal pushes out features like stories, which is like trying to be like Instagram, like, I'm not friends with everybody on my Signal contact list. Like, I'm serious. Like, it's not something that I want as like I don't want like a social network, but Signal from some of their releases seems to be following in the steps of like WhatsApp and trying to like replace them in some other countries where SMS texting is very expensive and it's just not a focus. So I applaud them on their international agenda. However, as like an American user of Signal, it's so much harder for me now to convince other people who use Android to use this app. It just sucks. So like, some of the justifications I've seen for it are pretty flimsy. A lot of people keep saying SMS is on its way out. People have been saying that since like 2008. Like, really, it's been around for such a long time, and we have better protocols, but the 2 major companies just won't talk to each other. So if you're like a senator replying to this thread and you have the power to introduce legislation that forces like a more secure communication protocol, I accept your point. But otherwise, this is what we have right now, and on like, on the ground, like, this is what we're dealing with. So I think this is a mistake. I really don't like it. And I also use the feedback feature in Signal to like send them a message saying, I think this is a mistake and I don't like it. And they replied, oh, you're not running the most recent version of the app. I'm not asking for support, buddy. I'm telling you this was a mistake. So anyway, I am not a huge fan of the direction that Signal is heading in right now. I will let you guys know when I find a good replacement that I start actually convincing people to use. But I feel like there's a big niche now for people who want convenience when it comes to being able to taking a step towards security, or interacting with their security or hacker friends or protester friends or whatever it is, without needing to silo all of your communication and like convince some of those like wobbling people going back and forth that like stories is a feature that's going to sell them on like siloing everything. Anyway,
Mhm.
mostly it seems to affect me and other Android users. A lot of iPhone people have been eager to tell me this is not a problem for them because it's always been that way.
Yep.
Just because the iPhone does not allow you to send text messages at all. It's like completely locked down, as iPhones are. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this, and I think I've adequately explained why. Unfortunate, but that's just the case.
Mhm.
So instead of an iPhone, of course, I decided to go with a Pixel. And with that, I found out that all of the images that I've cropped and sent basically forever can be recovered. So if you've
Mhm.
ever sent an image that you cropped thinking, hey, I don't want other people to see this information, the Acropolis vulnerability applies to you. So what is this? Well, it is a problem where the actual information that was cropped out was not actually removed from the file.
Mhm.
So you could very easily just go back to the file, remove where it starts reading and start back from the top, and boom, you suddenly have access to that
Mhm.
information again. Extremely stupid, but it has been fixed. The problem is this is not the only vulnerability that came out involving a Pixel. So also there was a problem, and this was a really, really serious one,
Mhm.
that went something like this. Somebody could send you a specially crafted message over Wi-Fi calling or LTE calling, and
Yep.
that would be able to infect your device potentially persistently and run
Mhm.
code arbitrarily on it. That is huge. Like that's a really, really bad deal.
Yeah.
And there's also a chain of breaches in the last couple months that are like, like AT&T, like subscriber
Mhm.
information, T-Mobile subscriber information. These are like people that work with Pixel, like for their plan. Like it's totally conceivable that people who have a Pixel or like a Google Fi like phone plan would potentially have that information leaked. And Fi,
Right.
unfortunately, just had a leak of all of their
Oh,
numbers and
no.
people who use Fi. So what are the odds that somebody who has a Google Fi number has a Pixel? You can
Mhm.
start to see the problem
Right.
with all these pixels being exposed. Okay, you ready for the best part? And by
Yeah.
best, I mean the most horrible part. You can't even turn off LTE calling on a
Yep.
Pixel because they removed the feature like a year ago.
Yep.
So
I read this, and that was the first thing that I went to look for, and yeah, it's not there. I remember seeing it, but I couldn't find it, and yeah, gotta love it.
then in a final cherry on top, this is a rumor, but it was from like fairly well-placed sources. Apparently somebody messed up the release of the Pixel like 6 Pro like update for this, and it was another day and a half behind all the other models. So like some of their flagship phones could
Yeah.
not be updated to fix this for an additional day or two, even when it was widely known
Mhm.
that this was a 0-day vulnerability and was being reported everywhere. You still couldn't fix it. Like I was going through my
Yeah.
Pixel and trying to find where I could turn this off, and it just wasn't able to be done. So pretty crazy to have a vulnerability like this go out, be acknowledged by, again, one of the largest corporations on earth,
Mhm.
and then not have a patch available for a
Right.
feature you literally can't turn off on one of your flagship phones. Wow.
Yeah. I think also weren't some of the Samsung phones affected because when Google switched
Yes.
to their own architecture, which I think is based on Samsung architecture now. Um, so yeah, oh man, it's rough.
Yeah, that's funny because we were actually talking about the problems associated with this Samsung produced like baseband like modem or something, and we
Yeah.
were like, oh, watch out if you have like an IoT device or a car or whatever else that has this in it. But
Right.
we forgot to mention that this is also the one of the chips powering one of the most popular types of Android phones.
Right.
So yeah, whoops. Kind of didn't see that one coming, but as soon as that came out, it really did have some fallout and ended up impacting a lot more than just
Yeah.
cars and IoT devices. Everything's connected. Thanks,
Mhm.
Samsung. So I already covered Dole, and I'm glad I did. Just wanted to shout out a couple tools because sometimes they do that. Data Surgeon. So this is something that allows you to extract information. So this is extracts types of sensitive information, including emails, phone numbers, hashes, credit cards, URLs, IP addresses, MAC addresses, all this interesting stuff. So basically, kind of like looking for high entropy or like otherwise interesting strings in a whole bunch of data. If you had like a big breach or a big data dump and you wanted to just extract all the interesting information from it, a lot of people were saying that this tool is super useful for them. And frankly, like I could
Interesting.
think of a number of different situations where this would be really great for a pen tester or even somebody who's just assessing a data breach. Like recently, the Minneapolis school district had the data that was breached
Right.
publicly released. And if you wanted to dig through all of it, that sounds horrible. If you wanted to dig through just the most relevant bits and see how bad it really was, this seems like the tool that might do it. So next up is What's My Name? So this is a tool that also got a lot of traction, and I just wanted to shout it out. If you have a username and you want to check it out, then you can go ahead and put a username in here, like Neil Breen, and then run it. By the way, did I tell everyone that I did an OSINT article on Neil Breen, who is an American video producer, if you don't know, that one of my friends is obsessed with. And he added me on Twitter after reading it, apparently, which is super funny. So yeah, anyway, so I can continue my stalking of Neil Breen by taking a look at all of the different accounts that he signed up for across the whole internet. So I can see the category. I can really see what he's up to. My favorite was actually getting and seeing like what kind of like eBay purchases he was making, because they seemed like related to his video projects. So like if you're a super fan, maybe you can like get a little peek at what's coming up next, you know? So I found this to be a really cool tool. As an OSINT person, like I really enjoy the like graphic user interface and being able to see it all just in front of me. I know there's some command line stuff that could do the same thing, but frankly, I thought this was cool.
I love that like random like deep film nerd stuff is now crossing over with like OSINT and cybersecurity. Like, cause that's where I know Neil Breen from, because like I'm a huge film nerd, you know.
Well, you probably didn't know that you can see every Reddit post he's made and also see what he has to say on Truth Social. Again, some of these may not actually be the real Neil Breen. It's just people that have like the screen name, and we definitely found some parody accounts and such. But if you're an OSINT person, if you're looking for like tracking a screen name across the internet, this is a pretty good way to do it.
That's pretty cool.
Just a quick funny copy of the DMCA takedown request that was filed by Meta. We already talked about that, but that's what it actually looked like. And I'm not even going to talk about the banana pie. Hey, everybody in the chat, I am looking for a good alternative to the Raspberry Pi for a summer camp I have coming up. I went ahead and tried checking out the banana pie. I'm not impressed, you guys. It's got some issues. So if you've got a good alternative to the Raspberry Pi that isn't $100 that you recommend for like a Linux device that could run Kali, for example, please let me know, because I am desperately searching for one. Okay, that's all the news I have from Twitter this time. However, let's get into what everybody really wanted to know about. Linus got hacked. So how did this happen, and what exactly was the fallout from this? Killian, did you hear about this?
I saw the article like late last night. I didn't get a chance to read through it, but I did hear about it. And didn't he shut down his channel then after that? I believe.
Yeah, so it looks like the channel was like deactivated while Google tries to figure out like what the attack vector was and how they can secure this better. But like it wasn't a phish password. It wasn't like two-factor bypass. It was a session token that allows you to stay logged in. So we've known about these sorts of things for a long time. In fact, there was one like way back in the day that used to allow you to log into other people's social media accounts that were on the same network as you. Do you remember that one?
Yep, I remember that. I mean, in fact, well, Kody, I know you and I think maybe we even did the attack lab together, but at least the Varonis as a company had an attack lab where we went through this exact same thing where you trick somebody, you got them to do the authentication, the MFA, and then you stole their token, and then boom, you're logged in, bypass all of that. So,
yeah, those tokens that are meant for, again, convenience, basically confirm that you are the correct person and allow you to, do all the stuff that you want to do on the website without having to log in again. And that can survive maybe going to a new IP address or other things that a computer might do as it moves around the world. So what happened here, apparently, was that somebody sent a sponsorship packet. Now, how do you get in touch with one of the most popular YouTubers out there? You offer them money, maybe a lot of money for something stupid that they're willing to do, that they just need more details on. So once you get their interest, then you would need to send something that, if executed on a local computer, would allow you to have lots and lots of access. Now, there was a certain point where, like, if you phish my account right, you would have been able to take down both Nullbyte and Hack5 at the same time. Fortunately for both of those YouTube channels, I cannot do that on my account now, but there was a time where that was possible, and that's pretty scary to know that you could take down like 1.6 million subscribers worth of like YouTube value, like all in one go. So obviously these content creators, and especially the people that work with them, are juicy targets for people who want to spread misinformation or otherwise have a large platform. So what it looks like was, yes, they sent them a sponsorship packet. Somebody downloaded and opened it, and then gave the bad actor an exact copy of the browsers that they could export to use and wreak havoc to log in as the person who they were pretending to be. So basically profiling all the information that that YouTube would have to kind of parse through to determine whether or not it was actually the same browser trying to log in.
Right.
So if you just did this and, you know, you stole a session cookie for, you know, a login on Chrome, and then you opened it at like a different IP address in a different browser with different configuration settings, like that would probably be flagged. That's like one of the things that we look for. Like it might be a different IP address, but if it's a totally different system, that's a little suspicious, you know? This was something where they stole enough information to be able to legitimately appear to be the same browser that had logged in before. So this just wasn't an attack where you could steal a cookie and just use it. You need more information than that. And that's why this is kind of a sophisticated attack that I'm rather impressed by. So what did they do with their access? Well, publicly, they started posting a bunch of like crypto scams. And this seems to be part of a continuing campaign against other creators that is doing basically the same thing, sending a sponsors package, taking over their account in this specific way, and then pushing a bunch of really amateur looking crypto sites. Just a very strange attack in that you would think that maybe they would do something more sophisticated or try to turn around and sell it. But it seems like these sort of like Tesla themed cryptocurrency scams are one of the more profitable things this group has decided they can do with a large platform. So kind of crazy to see like a large YouTuber like this get taken by this sort of attack. But frankly, it was extremely well crafted for them specifically, and took advantage of essentially, you know, like who is going to be someone who is working on this project, who will have access to everything, but at the same time, like might not, you know, check this sort of thing, or whose job is to open these sorts of things and kind of assess whether or not they want to go with it. It was really smart.
Yeah, this is now that we've kind of gotten a little bit more information on it, like it is scary and it is impressive, but also in, I'm not going to say the simplicity of it, but the fact that this is something that's like the session tokens is something fairly well known. You know, it's kind of been common forever. You know what I mean? And to use this in a unique way to compromise somebody who is so big and so famous in the YouTube community. So terrifying, but again, you have to give it a little bit of credit. I hate to do it, but you know.
Yeah, and I have to say also, this is barely fair because the people covering this have so many options for thumbnails on this story because of Linus just like making goofy faces his entire career. Like it's the story just writes itself. But yeah, so this was crazy. Obviously, if you're a YouTuber or if you're somebody with a platform like that, be very suspicious of sponsorships from companies that you cannot verify as being real companies you know of, or from companies that like might be like spoofed. There's a lot of different ways attackers can come after you, and this is an increasingly popular one that we're seeing other YouTubers get taken by as well. All right, so we have so much news today. We're kind of gonna have to go through them semi-fast, but they got Palm, you guys. So if you haven't heard, Palm Halpiran has been the owner of the Breach Forums hacking forum for a very long time. He's kind of a controversial figure in that, like, you know, like black hat hackers, like he's barely doing anything wrong. He likes to goof off every once in a while. And then like sketchy data companies that like buy data off the darknet and resell it to like the government are like, this guy's a bad actor, get him out of here. Because like he's kind of like the free version of their business model. So obviously breach forums is a place where people spread breach information. Like it could be construed as a marketplace, but a lot of the data that's breached there is free. So we'll it's kind of too early to speculate exactly what's going to happen here, but this has, well, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but this has spelled the end of breach forums as well, as the current administrators do not believe that it is safe to operate anymore, as the feds probably have access. So this forum has been around for a while and has been in the news a lot. And they were polite enough to only use his Avi and not show any pictures of him specifically, which I find very respectful of you, bleeping computer. So it describes him as a well-known player in a cybercriminal underground devoted to breaching computers and selling or leaking stolen data through forums and social media. He was also a high-profile member of the Raid Forum cybercrime group. Yeah, so I mean, you know, kind of honestly a popular underground figure amongst like hacker culture, kind of weirdly. But yeah, a lot of people are feeling supportive of him, even though obviously a lot of the things he was associated with and affiliated with are blatantly illegal. So we'll see how this one goes. But yeah, they got Palm, you guys. Kind of a sad day for people that were interested. I would say kind of a sad day for companies who buy data off of breach forums and then turn around and package it and then sell it as a product. Not naming anyone specifically, except for 3 companies I'm mentally naming specifically. All right, so next up, NBA, go sports. Except we got a data breach, you guys. So I can't tell you much about how sports normally work, but I can now tell you potentially information about people that like them. So this is not from the NBA themselves. It's held by a third-party data provider that does their newsletter service. So it's not like everything from the NRI, but the NBA. Sorry. Can you see how little I know about the NBA?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it looks like not that big of a breach. It's mostly like it's mostly just information about people that sign up for a newsletter. However, obviously it's a big organization and a lot of people are not going to like that. So it's saying that obviously if you are an NBA fan and you're on this list, you're expecting emails from the NBA, potentially about your account or an opportunity or a sale or something. So this makes it pretty ripe for phishing attacks and would be extremely useful for people who want to do sports-themed phishing attacks that know all about sports and what those sorts of people want. So if you are a sportsman or sportswoman or any sort of sports person, then beware, because you could be getting phished if you had signed up for the NBA newsletter. Aside from that, it doesn't look like your passwords or anything were breached. So I'm going to give this one like a very unofficial, like 3 out of 10 in terms of how worried about it I am. I mean, any data breach carries with it the risk of phishing. I sincerely hope that somebody is getting free credit monitoring.
You know what I noticed too, Kody, as I went through some of the articles for this? I love, and I think it's in a couple of them, maybe I have to look for it more carefully, but they're like, oh, our recommendation is to be vigilant. I think that's the new like corporate term, like to tell you like, oh, there's nothing we can do. Sorry, just be vigilant. You'll notice it. It's a bunch of these articles that seems to be the new catchphrase.
Leo is also chiming in and telling me about breach forms. I did not know this because I've never been on breach forums and I've never bought breach data. Apparently, in order to use breach forms, you have to buy credits and be able to like access the data breaches and download them. So it's not entirely free, and that also definitely sounds like taking a piece of the action for stolen property. However, as I said, these other companies just, if you can sell it, doesn't that mean that like buying it should also be illegal? I don't know. I'm not going to get into the debate, but yeah, a lot of people have opinions about this, and it is a big piece of news. So we'll stay tuned for that. All right, next, let's see who's getting free credit next. Okay, so Klop Ransomware has been in the news a lot because a lot of companies have been hit thanks to like a third. Would we call this like a watering hole attack or like a supply chain attack? Would be
supply chain attack.
Yeah. So this was a GoAnywhere 0-day vulnerability that allowed the Klop ransomware gang to frankly get at a lot of different companies' data. And in fact, I think the city of Toronto is going to be an upcoming story as well, as potentially being a victim of this gang as well. We are seeing this gang in the news a lot. And frankly, again, it's because of the interconnected nature of some of these products that, have a lot of corporations or a lot of important businesses using them, and thus have access to a lot of this really important data that those businesses absolutely need.
Yeah, this is certainly not the first, nor is it going to be the last, but this seems to be a much, I'm not going to say easier target, but you get a lot of bang for your buck when it does succeed, is compromising the kind of someone else in the supply chain here. Because again, you can be successful once and have, a lot of impact across a lot of organizations. I do have to shout out James. Sports is when police have to grease the light poles so people don't climb them. That's exactly it. That's the actual definition of sports.
Wow. Well, as with a lot of these other breaches we've seen, it seems like the burden of most of these breaches tends to be like employee files or other internal files that involve employees. And unfortunately, a lot of these times when it is employee files and not customer files, a lot of these companies tend to not pay. So instead, they get free credit monitoring. So we'll see other victims of the Klop ransomware gang, but it is shocking how just one breach can end up affecting so many companies, and you end up with all these victims because they were relying on one incredibly juicy third-party provider, just like the city of Toronto was. Again, this is the same breach. This is the GoAnywhere vulnerability that is allowing them to go on a hacking spree. And oh look. There's also UK's Virgin Red and Pension Protection Fund. Like, this is not a very targeted attack in the end because they got one company and they were able to spread to basically anybody who used them, but they're making good on this access, and they're really trying to go after a lot of prominent organizations that might have spooked off some like smaller ransomware operators.
Yeah, it seems like they've had a nice cross section of people who are using this. I don't remember. Is it 130? I was gonna say 130 organizations have had their data stolen through this.
Yeah,
So,
including Saks Fifth Avenue. I think we have a story on that coming up as well, which we're
Mhm.
just basically going to say the same thing and go through.
Right.
But I mean, it's the same problem. It was one incredibly important provider of services
Mhm.
to a bunch of different companies that then ended up being the attack vector that allowed
Right.
them to access data that, the Forda was not really the main target in this. It was all of their
Right.
customers that were going to pay up potentially way more money than any one company could ever afford to pay.
Yep.
So kind of a trend here, especially for the Klop Ransomware gang. I've just been amazed at seeing them all over the place. But
Mhm.
then again, they got a pretty prominent score when they were
Right.
able to hack into all these other companies using the GoAnywhere vulnerability. All right, next up, I think, Pawn to Own. What did we get out of there? So Pawn to Own, we see in the news a lot because there's a lot of 0 days that are discovered there. It's a bunch of hackers all getting together and trying to break stuff with permission, of course.
Mhm.
And this time they found some 0 days in the Tesla Model 3, Oracle's VirtualBox virtualization platform, which is used by like everyone, and then Ubuntu. So if you want to read more, there are some details here. I didn't go too much into them because, I'm sure we'll see them in a news story later. But I don't know. I really like this conference, and I like to shout them
Mhm.
out every time because they're always in the news for finding
Yep.
like 0 days in extremely prominent products. So yeah, don't have much more to say about that one aside
Yeah.
from if you want to see some cool 0 days, they're definitely a conference to check out or possibly attend.
I love that though. I love that it gets in the news, to be honest, because this is what I want to see. Like, I want to see good white hat hackers earning money, finding the stuff to keep us safe. Like, I know a couple weeks ago we talked about some of the automobile companies not really wanting to pay out, but like, this is nice, and I think they won maybe a couple Teslas in this. So shout out to Tesla for putting their cars on the block here and doing the right thing. I like that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that as well. I think that anybody who's brave enough to put up their stuff, find 0 days and patch them quickly, like
Yep.
they're gonna have better security than people who try to sweep that stuff under the rug.
Absolutely.
All right, so this is actually in multiple stories.
Yep.
This is a really bad WooCommerce plugin. So they're force patching this because it is being used in a very sophisticated attack that allows attackers to inject code that steals credit cards in really interesting ways. So
Yeah.
this is just kind of covering like what you need to do in order to stop it. The actual attack itself, to me, is more interesting. I think I have it up ahead a little bit. So I
It
can
is
have
in one
a
of the articles that goes into the detail on it. I forget which one.
Oh yeah, we'll cover it. But yeah, so we'll get back to this one. Let's just say that the attack here targets people who are attempting to have online stores
Mhm.
and might even have some security tools checking for like
Yeah.
unauthorized like data being exfiltrated or like code on the public facing website that's malicious. Like even if they have a good amount of scanning, it's still
Mhm.
possible to inject this code and get away with a lot of credit cards. So pretty wild. All right, so CISA came up with a new tool for scanning activity, Microsoft Cloud Services, and you'll
Mhm.
never guess what it's named. Untitled Goose tool. I'm curious.
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, I know that there's that game, there's that Goose game that.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
It seems a little late.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not sure what they were going with on there. I mean, we're completely off topic, but like, I'm not, because I don't know, geese are
it's a
malicious and run
dead
wild. I don't know.
It's a dead meme. It's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't
It's
know.
fine. It
Whatever.
was a good game. I mean, I guess we can still keep riffing on it. But anyway, so what this is a free Python-based utility that is going to dump telemetry information from Azure
Mhm.
Active Directory, Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft 365 environments. It's looking through all the audit logs. It's kind of looking for anything sketchy according to the MITRE attack framework and best practices. And it generally seems like if you're a business that doesn't have
Mhm.
anything else or doesn't run audits, like regularly, this is really good for you. It's free.
Yeah.
It allows you to do some of the stuff that the larger corporations do. And like I would say it's like the minimum perhaps you should be doing if you're not auditing your stuff in other ways and you're like a smaller business or you don't have like
Mhm.
like your own solution that allows you to dedicate a person to doing this. Because if you miss these alerts, it's obviously a really bad thing. So running this periodically or even frequently might be something that smaller businesses could do for free to be able to get at least a little bit of a warning if something starts going wrong. Because frequently, someone will be breached, they'll get in, they'll establish persistence, and then they'll lay
Mhm.
low for a while. And if you can catch them in that phase, then it means that maybe your data hasn't been exfiltrated yet while they're still doing like enumeration, and they're trying to like maybe escalate privileges or something in your network.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. And I mean, Kody, you know that I spend a lot of time talking about 365 just with our role here, but it's nice to see that there are some tools for people out there, because again, it's super complicated. There's 365 it's a common platform. It's great for what it's designed for, which is collaboration, which is getting people to work together all over the world. But it's powerful, and it's complex, and it's there's a lot of risk inherent to the platform, even from normal business processes. And I know you and I collaborate a lot on things too. I collaborate with people internally. Every single Microsoft app that's built into Windows has that share button, and it's just easy for sensitive data to get up there, to be shared and collaborated, because that's what it's designed for. But to get some of this information out is tough. So
yeah, it absolutely is. I've been informed under no uncertain circumstances that mess with the honk, you get the bonk. So I'm going to walk back everything I said. It is an alive meme, and it's very clever of them to use that name. I apologize to all the Untitled Goose Game fans in the audience, of which there seem to be numerous. Moving on. So this is a story that's great, but as a hacker, I barely care about it. Windows 11 is getting phishing protection. Hooray for them. And it's also going to be including some new SHA-3 cryptographic hash functions. Hopefully that makes it harder for hackers to, attack like do like Kerber roasting and like other stuff where we would like be going after a hash if they're using stronger hashes in general. So this is a positive sign. I don't have much else to say about this. Keelan, you have any other thoughts?
No, just in general, like it's nice to see that it's built in. Yeah, not sure about the hashes, how much that will have an impact, especially because
we downgrade, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you have a 2008 server or something floating around, or 2003 server, because they're out there. I've seen organizations with Windows 2000 boxes, and you gotta you have to operate to be able to support them on a lower domain security level, or functional level, I should say.
Yes, the Millennium Edition, my favorite version of Windows.
You know what? All of us, we're just going to start using Millennium Edition because nobody wants to hack it. Ultimate security through obscurity. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of hacking Windows, that Acropolis bug we just talked about affecting pixels?
Yep.
Well, guess what? It turns out that Microsoft was invited to the party too, because their snipping tool that is included by default and does their cropping had the exact same flaw. So that means that if you've been sharing screenshots on Windows, you use the clipping tool to redact, it might not actually have been redacted. And in fact, it could potentially have been shared. A lot of people were very freaked out about this, because obviously the pixel is one thing, but Windows is a completely different thing. That's I dare say, a little bit bigger than just the Pixel phone. So people finding out that their cropped images might actually have all the stuff that they intended to crop out before sharing. If this was compressed or modified, like maybe that information was destroyed. But if you're sharing the raw file, it is 100% included and recoverable. So maybe if you use Windows, like make a mental list of every photo or whatever else you sent that you've cropped, and think about whether or not that's a problem. And then try to claw that back if you can, because it really is something that a lot of people are freaked out by, because they assume that if you crop something out, it's out of the image. It makes the file smaller or something. But no, it actually just sets a new marker inside the file from where it starts reading. And that is perhaps sufficient, but not secure. And a lot of people were upset about that.
I think are still upset, because isn't Windows 10 still affected? I believe.
Oh my God, you're right.
I think it is.
So Windows 11 was updated, but Windows 10 is actually still affected. Which sucks. So Bleepy Computer apparently reached out and asked if it will be updated, and there's no response in this article. So as of today, there has been no response, and this is still a thing on Windows 10.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. This is the story. So why was WooCommerce getting force updated? Why was I bothering to share with you instructions on how to do this earlier? Well, it's because of this. So attackers were able to inject code inside the authorized.net payment gateway module for WooCommerce, which means that the code was not actually hosted on the forward-facing website, which would get scanned and kind of like looked at. Instead, this was only initiated at checkout and was able to grab customer information like credit card number, expiration date, CVV number, address, phone numbers, and email addresses. Now, this information could be easily combined to get the person's full name, which is what you need. And usually they're like, oh, well, it just has one token. It's only able to, do whatever this one time. Not in this case. If you're able to get all this information, you're just stealing the credit card information. You can use it pretty much anywhere. So a lot of online merchants work with security companies that scan the HTML, so they couldn't go there. And they also will maybe scan the outgoing activity and look for things that are suspicious. How do you get around that? Well, these attackers were very, very clever, you guys. They managed to figure out that they could not only hide by only like popping up in the final moments of the authorization so that the code wasn't actually hosted on the website, they were able to actually encode the hidden information into an image file that the attackers later retrieve. Now, in order to evade the scanning, whatever else that might happen, they were able to pretend to be part of just normal data by mimicking WordPress's Heartbeat API to emulate regular traffic and mix it in with the victim's payment during exfiltration. So they made it look like just like this image file was being uploaded as part of like the Heartbeat API, but instead the image file was actually encoded with encrypted information that had been stolen from the point of sale system. Do you know how sophisticated this is? It's crazy. Like, it's really wild to see how far these attackers went to not burn this vulnerability while it was running. They must have stolen, frankly, a ton of credit card numbers with this.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, I hate to say it, but it's dedication to the craft. It's an ever escalating arms race, really. And the fact that they went to a real encryption API, or sorry, a real encryption as opposed to like base64 encoding or something like, not lame, but you know what I mean, like something fairly common, to really take it home. But yeah, and just shows there's a lot of money behind it.
Hey, just came out. There's actually now a patch for Windows 10 from one of our people in our chat. Now you just have to screenshot your screenshot if you want to do a crop. So there you go, everyone. Workaround has now been released. Windows 10 is no longer vulnerable. You just have to screenshot your screenshot and you are good. All right. Wow, that was fast. You did it. You released that faster than Microsoft. You should get a raise. All right. So speaking of people that are getting free credit monitoring, we got Dole employees. So Dole was in some sort of data incident we reported a week or two ago, but now it seems that, yes, this was a ransomware attack, and it seems as though it was a double exploitation ransomware attack where a memo was sent out saying that they're in crisis management mode. This was actually a very polite and very brief letter to all the stores that were affected, but it does look like it is going to be free credit monitoring for Dole employees at this point, based on what little information that has come out again about this attack. So stay tuned for more information. We don't know how the negotiations are going to go, but with these sorts of double exploitation ransomware attacks, goes one of two ways. Either the data gets released or it doesn't. So we'll see what happens here. So are you interested in ChatGPT? Do you have a Facebook account? Well, there are a lot of different phishing websites out there that are pushing ChatGPT plugins or ChatGPT add-ons for AI enthusiasts who are interested in getting in on all this cool stuff. However, some of these are actually designed to exclusively steal your Facebook account. So this is a Trojanized version of a legitimate ChatGPT extension, which is why every time I'm downloading an extension, I always look to see like if there's another one that's similarly named that has like more reviews, for example. So this is an easy mistake to make, especially as there's a lot of scrambling going on for companies to develop things that are useful for ChatGPT that add like more interesting things. Like, and this sucks because a lot of people don't know where to turn. So personally, just to give a shout out, I've been going to the AI Exchange for learning about ChatGPT, everything that's rolling out, and kind of keeping up with all this super fast-paced AI stuff that's happening. If you just go with Google, you are probably going to be vulnerable to one of those attacks where people use SEO to get phishing links up to the top and end up downloading one of these Trojanized versions instead. People have a financial interest in doing this, and they can abuse Google ads in order to pop up these malicious websites up at the top when you search for something that has a legitimate result way down at the bottom. So you'll start to see these attacks becoming more and more frequent as we have these sorts of power vacuums, like ChatGPT coming out and all these people scrambling to develop stuff. It's not really clear who the big players are yet. So it's easy to get confused while looking for a way to participate. All right, next up, we have North Korean hackers are using Gmail extensions to steal Gmail emails. Guess what? It's the exact same story that I just said, except now it's North Koreans and they're using these extensions in order to steal Gmail accounts. So I'm not going to go too much through this because literally it's the same story we just went through with a slightly different goal. It's just very important for you guys to scrutinize these sorts of like extensions before installing them. And part of that is just like looking at them and seeing if there's any obvious red flags. And second, if you're a researcher, if you're somebody who wants to dig in it, there's lots of tools that allow you to extract like what actions it takes or what permissions it needs. That might be a big red flag if there's some of them in there that it clearly does not need. All right, racing through. Let's see if we can get through. So this is, I'm actually not going to cover this because we don't have time. Not that interesting. City of Oakland. So this is another Lockbit story. This is not the Klop Ransomware gang. But this is now being claimed that the City of Oakland is potentially in another data breach. So we were talking about this, what, like 3-4 weeks ago? Like the City of Oakland dealing with a breach. And this now seems to be another entry in the Lockbit data website that's saying that they have information and they're threatening to breach it. And it's threatening to breach it on April 10th. So again, this is not the same story as before. This is a completely new one. The City of Oakland has yet to release a statement about this, but we can see that once it's up there and it's starting to be leaked, then it's usually some sort of data breach scenario, or I'm sorry, an unexpected encryption event. So more bad news for the City of Oakland. We'll continue to see how this develops, but it seems as though employees' personal data is again at the center of the breach. This was talked about the breach in February 8th of 2023, and we're not totally sure what's going to happen. Wait, what?
Yeah, this one was interesting because I believe that they're claiming that this wasn't a second breach. Actually, I think the story updated, Kody. I think right before we went on. Let's see. I think there's a statement, or there was a statement.
Here we go. Yeah. Yep. So we're aware that another unauthorized actor claims to have access to data removed from the City of Oakland systems. Our investigation with cybersecurity professionals and federal law enforcement remains ongoing. Based on our investigation so far, we have no indication that there was additional unauthorized access for our systems. We will continue to provide updates as appropriate. So this could be data that was stolen but not breached before. So it's like from the same breach. That would be a really excellent way of having a statement that sounds like you weren't breached twice, but in fact, it's two different sets of data, but breached at the same time. So again, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but it does appear that another bundle of data is now being threatened to be released. And this could just be a second attempt at getting a ransom. Maybe they didn't pay it the first time, or maybe this is data that's juicier and they're doing kind of a rollout where they try semi-juicy data and then they go after the really aggressive stuff if they don't pay. I'm not really sure, but ransomware is a whole business. You know, we'll really see what they manage to get out of this. All right. As we mentioned before, the breach hacking forum is shutting down. Oh my gosh, I've seen this Halloween costume so many times. I'm glad to see it in stock photography now. So this was shut down by botnets. Considering that after the administrator was arrested, it's probably pretty likely that the rest of the forum had been infiltrated or otherwise was no longer secure. So not desiring to join their leader, the forum has been shut down. So you can expect that this forum will pop back up for somebody who has less to lose and in an environment that doesn't feel as infiltrated. But they are saying that there are a lot of glowies, which is means federal agents. And because of that, they definitely are taking it on the safe side and shutting it down. So if you were a fan of breach forums, it looks like it's going to be, off to the next one. These things rarely stay down for long, though, so I wouldn't hold your breath that, we've eliminated hacking or breach forums forever. All right, how much time do we have left? Oh, look at this. Klop Ransomware has also gotten Saks Fifth Avenue. We actually already covered this. I'm just going to say this was the GoAnywhere tool. This is something that affected so many organizations. And frankly, like when you have a third-party tool like this that has access to so much vulnerable data, maybe you need something watching that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not going to say anything was done wrong by anyone. I'm just going to say, like, this was bad. All right, so another data breach. This one is Ferrari. And in this case, we don't know what kind of data was breached yet, only that they have received a ransom demand, and they are being kind of tight-lipped about it, except to say that they are wholly Italian-owned subsidiary, which is great. So it's starting an investigation to find out what's going on, but it says customer information included was names, addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers. So just like all those sportsmen, sportswomen, and sports people, you need to watch out for phishing attacks, because if you want to own, or have thought about owning a Ferrari and signed up for some sort of list, it's entirely possible that you could be hit with some sort of phishing attack. But it seems as though it has had no impact on Ferrari's operations, so they don't seem to care that much.
Well, you know who really needs free credit monitoring? Free credit monitoring is people who have Ferrari money. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Although, I mean, on the flip side, I make a joke about that, but these are probably high net worth individuals who, people will take extra time and care to try and, target. So
yeah.
it's a real thing.
No, absolutely. Like high-end customers are definitely a target here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, let's see if we can get through it. We've got General Bytes Bitcoin ATMs hacked using a zero-day vulnerability with $1.5 million stolen, which honestly seems kind of low for
a little bit
like a Bitcoin ATM zero-day vulnerability. But hey, good for you. It's more money than I've made from any particular scheme or scam. So these guys found a way to inject a zero-day vulnerability trapped as BAMF 4780. This is not what I'm sorry. This is not a CVE. What is this?
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever that is, remotely uploaded a Java application via the ATM's master services interface and ran it in BAMF user privileges. I don't know what that means. Probably someone else does. So the attacker scanned the DigitalOcean cloud hosting IP address space and identified running CAS services and then attacked them apparently remotely. And then the company took to Twitter to take immediate action to install the latest updates, because if you have one of these things, then it is potentially vulnerable. But this application was allowed to access the database, read and decrypt API keys used to access funds in hot wallets and exchanges, send funds from hot wallets, download usernames, their password hashes, and turn off 2FA, and access terminal event logs and scan for any instance where customers scan private keys at the ATM. Older versions were actually logging this information, which sucks. That means that if you went to one of these ATMs and scanned your private key, then it was storing the information and it was able to potentially exfiltrate that. So that sucks. The fact that there's only $1.5 million is still, it's pretty shocking. But I honestly kind of expected it to be more if it had direct access to people's wallets. But yeah, kind of a scary thing, because like you could just have the money in your wallet drained and have no idea that it was an ATM you visited 7 months ago, that was responsible for that attack.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I've seen these things around. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the crypto world can explain to them, but they've always just looked dodgy to me. Like, go put your private information at this random, thing at a gas station.
Yeah, like the same way that the breach form people were talking about glowies,
Right.
like I kind of always saw these as like, hey, do you want to talk to the federal government? Like, you want people to think you're laundering money or paying a ransom? Like, I just looked at them and I'm like, no, that's okay. I don't want that. That's not for me. But yes, for people who have been forced to use these things, it seems as though they've got some problems. All right, so just got to pour one out for Zippyshare, host of a lot of sketchy files over the last 17 years. Zippyshare has come up a number of times, sometimes being called a, let's see, what did they call it? Oh yeah, well known for downloads and distribution of allegedly infringing music, and I think also like malware and that sort of stuff, like breaches.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had a reputation for letting you just pretty much like host anything there that you really wanted to, and they were involved in like a lot of like breaches and other things. So it seems like they're finally shutting down. If you've got a hankering to save Zippyshare, now's the moment, because it seems like after 17 years, the legacy is finally over. All right, so we already talked about Acropolis. We're over that. We're beyond that. I've already forgiven myself for that. And then last up, I think this is going to be the final story we have time. Oh, second to last story you have time for. The new Hinata bot is potentially able to launch 3.3 terabytes per second distributed denial of service attacks. That is more than enough to knock most services that don't have some dedicated protection off of the internet. We saw that there was a couple of these attacks that were like absorbed by some like more modern like service providers who are specialized in protecting against these sort of attacks, but it saturated their network to the point that like all of their centers were busy, if not overwhelmed, by the sheer force of these attacks. So it seems like it's brute forcing SSH endpoints, which would make it very difficult to log into an SSH service and basically disable it and make it inaccessible or just take it offline. Obviously, that could be a big deal with like a sensitive thing that needs to be logged into remotely that can't be accessed easily. But yeah, pretty crazy the sheer amount of traffic that's being able to be generated by these attacks, because it's just grown exponentially from what we were expecting before.
Yeah, with that one, it's related to, I think it was in the story. Is this related to the Mirai group, I think, or Miri or whatever it's called? And is it targeting, is it also targeting like routers and stuff like that, or IoT devices? I don't remember, to be honest, because I think that's what it was.
I think a lot of these are using like reflection, techniques where they hit like public facing infrastructure and then cause reflections back on the target. So they're able to dramatically amplify things. Yeah, by like targeting networking devices and other things that can generate huge amounts of traffic if they're hit with the right protocol. These are very sneaky, and they find ways of making it so it's sometimes even kind of difficult to tell where the traffic's coming from originally.
Right.
Oh, I've got an update on that Ferrari story from one of our viewers. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Bugatti, spaghetti. All right, thank you. That was great.
I like all those things, so you know.
Yeah. All right, and last up, this is big news for people that are into the whole AI ChatGPT thing. Chat plugins is coming to ChatGPT. This is something that allows you to plug in third-party applications and do things like directly access the internet. So that could be everything from summing up news stories all the way through like looking through live web pages and extracting information, performing things on behalf of the user, like booking a flight or ordering food. This is really crazy, because for the first time, we're going to be able to see live AI generated actions going across the network and having like influences on everyday things. I'm prepared to be seriously annoyed by this, as an increasing amount of traffic is AI generated, and I am exposed to more and more things that a human has never had to read, touch, or think about until it lands on my eyes. At least right now, I have the satisfaction of knowing that if I'm reading a spam email, 2 people have read it, me and the person who wrote it. But nowadays, it seems like very soon, it's going to be down to the point where I'm reading things that only an AI has dreamed up and no other human being has had their time wasted by. And I'm not excited by that.
Right.
All right. So that's all the time we have for news this week. We covered a ton of things. I'm actually amazed that we got through all of our news stories, and that compared to a couple weeks ago, not that many people got free credit monitoring this week. Congratulations, you guys.
Hooray, we win, sort of.
Yeah.
Or less people lose, I guess, is maybe more accurate.
Yeah, less people lost this week, I guess would be the way of saying it. So if you have any questions about any of the stories we talked about, make sure to go to our YouTube channel, leave it as a comment, and I will answer it live on our Wednesday Q&A. I also want to shout out, per usual, our sponsor Varonis, who, if you want to see more great content, you can go to varonis.com/Kody, Kody, and find the, I think this week it's our proactive IR incident response seminar, which goes through how real companies do incident response in the right way. If you're tired of hearing all these examples of how people have done it the wrong way, maybe you can see like what actually should happen, like during a data breach or during one of these incidents where incident response has to go through, find out what's wrong, and remediate as quickly as possible. You can check that out at varonis.com/Kody. And of course, I also have some great articles I've written up on the varonis.com website for free if you want to check that out too, as well as all of our other great resources. So thank you to Varonis for sponsoring us. Thank you to Killian for making time to hang out with us and talk about the news this week. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Yeah,
absolutely. Take care.
All right. See you later, everyone. Bye.